when you have a situation where Democratic United States senators, say the two from the state of California with a population of 38 million people, when they are unable to access the language of the legislation for the purposes of representing those 38 million people, and the way that they get to see the language is by having it handed to them by a lobbyist who's working with the Republican leadership to write the bill. What that means is the United States Senate, which used to be called the world's greatest deliberative body, that has just gone completely off the rails. And I'm somebody who wants to see a fundamental reformation of the American tax code. I love the idea of cutting taxes. I love the idea of cutting top marginal rates. It makes my heart flutter and makes me go wobbly in the knees. This is not that. This does nothing to lift the wages of working class Americans, and that's the #1 economic problem we have in the country. It adds $1.5 trillion to the debt. It is a massive corporate tax break paid for by the middle class of the country. It is as irresponsible and reckless a piece of legislation, done as ship-shottedly as you could possibly conceive of. Real disservice to the American people here. And I think there'll be a big consequence for Republicans in November of 2018, because remember, what they're hailing as a victory has a 25% approval level with the actual human beings in the country who will vote. Just like in the health care bill that they voted earlier, they don't have the final costs. They don't know particularly what it's going to do. It just shows the complete and total collapse of rigor around the policymaking process in this country. This is not how we ought to be doing multi-trillion-dollar legislation that affects 100% of the American people. It's just not. You have 100% of the Democrats, 60 to 65% of independents, and roughly, and I'm talking about voters, not elected officials, 20 to 25% of the Republican Party that just stands in absolute opposition to this president, to his divisions, his malfeasance, his incompetence. The Republican Party has discarded every principle that it's held dear on matters of policy. It has gotten in line behind a president who degrades his office, who divides the American people. They're complicit in it with their silence. And I think that there is one question on the ballot in November of 2018, and it's, do you want to put a check on President Donald Trump? And I think that the answer to that question in the overwhelming majority of the American people is yes. And there's going to be a coalition of people, I suspect, that don't agree with each other on very many policies, but agree 100% with each other on their concept of fidelity to the Constitution, to the rule of law, to what makes this country a very special place.